I hate my mom. Yes, it's true, and I'm not going to make excuses. That woman ruined my life. How did that happen? Subscribe and find out. And don't forget to like if you loved the story. I've always been a quiet person. I like to spend time reading and being alone with myself. In junior high school, I started having skin and dental problems, which caused me to be teased and insulted constantly by my classmates and older students. I remember carefully applying ointment to every inch of my face every night, hating my braces and dreaming how one day I would wake up incredibly beautiful and make everyone regret their words. And one day, that's exactly what happened. Skin meds, a trip to camp where I had my first kiss, and tons more. And then I got my damn braces off. Oh my god, I've been wanting to do that for so long. My teeth were almost like Hollywood actors. It turned out I had incredibly long legs and a pretty good figure. So after coming home from camp, I immediately took all my pocket money and went to the mall. That's where I ran into Naomi, the biggest gossip in our school. Naomi always looked gorgeous and wore the most fashionable clothes. Of course, I hated her for bullying me. But now she admired how I changed over the summer. So we went shopping together. It was so cool. I couldn't even believe it. One of the most popular girls in school eating muksundi and chocolate with me. Showing me her TikToks and advertising me on what would suit me. And you know who would just die of envy? Lily from Parallel. Naomi was happily looking at a top that I thought was too revealing. Why? I asked, embarrassed. Because with that figure and my advice, you'll easily beat Nick away from her. Nick was the arrogant high school boy that all the girls dreamed of. He was always kicking me and calling me a weirdo, so I just had to rub his nose in it. But when I got home, happy and shopping, I got some shocking news.
We're getting a divorce.
I think it was my dad who said that. He and Mom were sitting there with their eyes down. The bags full of clothes fell out of my hands. But why? My breath hitched with excitement.
Your mother betrayed me. I won't stand for it.
Suddenly, my father slammed his fist on the table with all his might, stood up, and walked out. Mom burst into tears and ran after him. And I was left standing in the middle of the living room, trying to comprehend everything that had just come over me. Dad was demanding, sometimes nervous, but I loved him. My mom and I always had a wall. She didn't like everything about me and hated spending time with me. I only told my grandmother about all my problems when she came for the holidays. But I didn't believe she could do that. However, all thoughts of the situation between my parents disappeared when, on the first day of school, I saw how my previously hated classmates reacted to me. The most popular beauties gave me angry looks. The hottest guys turned around. What did I tell you? A short, thin top, a mini, and it's cool. Naomi met me outside of class. And then this happened. You know, like in rom-coms, when some cool girl walks into a room in slow motion and all eyes are on her? Her hair blowing around like the wind, everything about her is perfect? I guess that's what I looked like in Nick's eyes. When I walked in, he was right beside me.
You look good as new.
Is that all the compliments you're capable of? And I saw Nick blush for the first time in my life. The one who'd made fun of my braces and yelled the loudest that I was a freak. But for some reason, instead of tasting victory and getting even with him, I wanted to kiss him. Of course I didn't. But Nick was totally into me. The notes in class, the Kinder on my desk, the balloon heart by my locker. I honestly tried to remember my resentments, but on Valentine's Day, he made me a huge Valentine's card and asked me to dance.
I really like you. Forget about everything and let's be together.
I melted. We started dating. Every second, my thoughts were on Nick. He was my escape from what was going on at home. My dad gave the house to my mom, but I was angry. He knew what she was like, but he left me with her. Mom really acted like I was bothering her. We didn't talk much. She seemed to be spending time with her lover. But I was glad she did. A year went by. Nick became a student. We kept seeing each other. I saw my mom more and more gloomy, her relationship wasn't working out. So she suddenly turned her attention to me. She found out I was seeing someone and started demanding to meet me.
Let's get acquainted, and all the questions will disappear.
Nick smiled. I didn't want to, but I finally gave in. My mom ordered dinner. Nick came with a beautiful bouquet for her, and he was polite. I noticed that Mom had been eyeing him meticulously all evening, and after he left, she angrily sniped at me to put the dishes away. So, could he come over sometimes? I asked timidly. Okay. Mom waved her hand and went into the bathroom. But then I noticed something strange. Mom was in a better mood. She updated her closet, bought fitted dresses with cleavage, changed her hair, and started smiling. Nick and me to some when he stopped by. Did you have someone over? I asked. But Mom just smiled slyly. I might have. How are things with Nick? Things were bad. Lately, it was like Nick had gone cold. Everything irritated him. The way I ate, the music I played. I was worried. I consulted with Naomi. You haven't had anything yet, have you? Maybe that's the point. Naomi laughed, watching me blush. When I invited Nick to visit me, he looked at me coldly and said no. Are we okay? I asked frustratedly.
We need to take a break.
Nick turned around and walked away without another word. I was in so much pain. I didn't understand what was happening. You can spend the night at my place. Naomi assured me that we'd find a solution together. I left a note for my mom that I wouldn't spend the night, took my things, and went to Naomi's house. But it turned out she was having a party she hadn't told me about. Why do you need it? Let's have fun. I tried to distract myself, but my thoughts kept coming back to our conversation. So while Naomi gossiped with her friends, I slipped out of her house and went home. I just wanted to be alone with my thoughts. I opened the door and heard romantic music. It sounded like my mom had decided to have a date while I was gone. And I walked through. I glanced around the living room and froze with shock. Mom was sitting on the couch in a translucent dress, making out with Nick. He was gently stroking her cheek, and she was wrapping her arms around his neck. I yelled, and they bounced away from each other like scalded animals. Nick looked guilty, but I didn't see any guilt on my mom's face. In fact, she was angry that her date had been interrupted.
I'll explain everything.
Nick took a step toward me. No! How could you do this? How could you? I was out of breath. How long? How long has this been going on?
A few, weeks.
Get out! Get out!
Hannah, I'm sorry.
He bowed his head and walked towards the exit. I turned to my mom. Why? Because you and Dad ruined my life. I wanted to shine, but I had to stay home. You'll find someone else. You've got your whole life ahead of you. I slapped her and ran outside crying. 3 months passed. I moved in with my grandmother and lived with her. I'm not going to school yet. Nick keeps texting me. But I have nothing to say to him. I've been betrayed by the people closest to me, and I can't forgive them. Could you forgive someone like that? Admit it. Who among you likes to gossip? Who hasn't been drawn into the web of other people's intrigues and secrets? Some watch talk shows, some read the tabloids. There are those who like to listen, and there are those who don't mind discussing other people's lives. Gossip. Stories that can captivate your imagination or ruin your life. Hi, this is Madison, and I'm Gossip Girl, and my story doesn't have a happy ending at all. Subscribe to the channel and give me a like, and I'll tell you what I did, and why you shouldn't make the same mistakes I did. I love rumors, but don't get the wrong idea. I didn't trash anyone. It's just curiosity, that's all. Sometimes I just want to know if the gym teacher is really having an affair with the headmistress, and the hot new girl from the parallel school wore braces in 6th grade. They don't care, but for me, it's evidence that everyone has secrets and no one is perfect. And how do you keep it together? At school, everyone gossiped about the hottest guy and his crazy groupies. At home, about the neighbor who just moved into a 4th-floor apartment and was pretty reserved. Even at home, when my mom started calling her friends, my sister and my dad would immediately run away. And on days like that, waiting for lunch was useless. But I understood my mom because I too could spend hours on the phone talking about the latest news. My best friend Pete also loved rumors and willingly shared them with me and our mutual friend Nancy. Except she didn't like gossip at all, and she was always bad-mouthing us. Did you know that Daisy had tattoos on her stomach? I told her excitedly. It's so painful, and her parents are freaking out.
It's nothing. That's what Matthew did last night.
Pete whispered to me. Nancy sat between us in the dining room and grumbled. What a saint. And then came summer vacation. I was planning to make a little money, so I didn't even think about vacation. Last year, I had already taken a few shifts at a movie theater near my home. Selling tickets at the box office is not difficult, and I could go often to night sessions for free. The administrator was happy with my work, so we agreed that this year I would work for them. But it turned out that until the end of summer, the theater is closed for repairs. I had to look for another part-time job. And then, on the internet, I came across an ad. The local radio station was looking for new presenters. They needed fresh voices and progressive thoughts. As it was explained to me on the phone, I'd been dreaming about it for a long time. I went to a journalism class. I even sometimes voiced the news on the school radio. But a city station? I couldn't believe it. Nancy was really happy for me, but I was nervous. Would I do it? As is always the case on my first day on the job, everything went wrong. My mom forgot to fill the tank in the morning, the hot water was turned off, and then we got stuck in traffic. But eventually, we managed to get to the radio station office, albeit late. The room was very bright and spacious. I couldn't believe I was going to work here. The interview was conducted by a stylish and confident girl. I was nervous, but I think I managed to make her feel at ease. But when I was told that they would call me, I got sad. Because in fact, it meant, you were not suitable for us, goodbye. But my bestie reassured me. It's gonna be okay, trust me, you'll get the job. So I did. They liked my designs and ideas. It's true, they took me to an internship at a small rate. But it was really lucky to get into such a company. I was overjoyed. They're hiring me, I bragged to my friend. I just need to come up with a column and conceptualize it. Your own column? You'll be a star in no time. Hey, what if we do something like Gossip Girl? You know, like, tell stories that are supposedly based on true events. That's not a bad idea. Nancy agreed. But you come up with it, not talk about us. You think I'm gonna tell other people's secrets on the air? I was offended. And we got into a huge fight. I wasn't going to gossip about someone on the radio. How could she think that about me? You're just jealous of me, I said and hung up. The project manager at the radio station liked my idea very much, but there was a problem with the topics. You see, sweetie, the ideas are not bad, but they feel artificial. A bubble. A fiction, you know? Yes. I sweat from excitement and looked into her eyes with hope. We need the dark side of teenage life. There's secrets, experiences, passions, quarrels. It's been a long time since anyone's been interested in sweet stories. Add pepper to your stories. Then they'll be listened to. But I can't, it's a private life. Change your names and give yourself a pseudonym. And I nodded silently in response. When did things get out of control? How did I let it happen? I don't know. Probably the moment I could convince myself that there was nothing wrong with other people's secrets. A little story, a few names, and that was it. And I went by the name Gossip Girl, just like on the show. My voice sounded a lot different from what it used to sound like on the air. So I wasn't really afraid of anyone recognizing me. My first story was about the amorous affair of a gym teacher and our headmistress, and the audience loved it. After the first episode, the project supervisor flew into the studio and started applauding. You're a freaking genius, baby! Your Gossip Girl is driving our ratings up. Way to go! Well, I guess that's when I lost control. The praise from such a professional made my head spin.
The tangy aroma of future success was intoxicating. I decided to dig deeper, go after my enemies, and uncover their darkest secrets. Cheer up, my dear listeners. Sandy's in trouble. She's dating 2 guys at once and doesn't know which one to choose. And Leslie accidentally uploaded her swimsuit photo to the school chat room. If you haven't gotten a tattoo to a racy spot and you're afraid to tell your parents, then you have nothing to be embarrassed about. Mark knows exactly why you shouldn't buy bean soup in the cafeteria, and so does his girlfriend Stacy. I was on a roll. Nancy and Pete, on the other hand, were pissed. You're the one who loves gossip. I resented you. But not on the radio, and not about anyone I know. Pete was nervous. I changed names.
But I didn't last time.
I forgot, and they weren't stories about you.
You're gonna give away all our secrets.
Is that what you think I am? Then we better not talk at all. We had a big fight. It was very unpleasant, but I wasn't going to give up my dream because of them. In just a few months, my column became mega popular. The ratings were off the charts. The curator rubbed her hands together excitedly and kept saying that she would come up with a new project for me and let me go live. Summer vacation was over, and we went back to school. I still hadn't talked to Pete and Nancy, but everyone was gossiping about the mysterious gossip girl on the town radio. My voice was unrecognizable, and I breathed a sigh of relief. But it wasn't that simple. As it turned out, while I was indulging my ego, my column made a lot of noise. Everyone was whispering amongst themselves and glancing at each other. And then at one point, I was ignored in class. I didn't realize what was happening. Nobody knew anything. Except Pete and Nancy. I guess they must have told everyone it was me. But why? 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 So, with anger boiling over, I decided to get revenge. I told a story on the radio about Nancy getting pustules on her face before a date with a high school boy. But she was so embarrassed, she didn't dare cancel. And the offended boy waited for 2 hours for her at the cafe. And Pete was so overexcited at karaoke that his stomach twisted and had to run to the women's restroom because in the men's was a queue. In telling these secrets, I changed the names. But it didn't save the conflict. Nancy and Pete were furious at what I've done. Turns out no one had turned me in. And the rumor that I was a gossip girl had been spread by a classmate, just so they wouldn't think it was her. A few days later, I was hit with a real blow. An article appeared in the school chat room with my picture and the story that Madison, that's me, was the gossip girl. The author of the article turned out to be the project supervisor at the radio station. I don't know why she did it. Maybe she was jealous of my success? But my life was a living hell. I gossiped not only about the students, but also about the teachers. I even accused one of them of inflating the grades of my favorites. Now that's all out in the open. Our school is under scrutiny. I've been fired from the radio station. I'm a real pariah at school. Nobody wants to talk to me. Everyone hates me. I don't know why I did what I did. Fame blinded me, and I couldn't stop myself. What would you do to be popular? Write. Let's discuss in the comments.
What are you afraid of? This video will destroy her. She deserves it. I don't know. I'm scared of her, Camille. Stop it, you. What are you two whispering about? What secrets? Keep your nose out of it, Cindy. Go to class. And you, Rosie, think carefully. This is our chance. That's it. I gotta go. Mwah! And Camille jumped up and down the hallway. Hi, my name is Rosie. We were just arguing with my best friend Camille. It's all about our new class teacher, Mrs. Kindle, who's making life miserable for Camille and me. Please subscribe to the channel and I'll tell you what happened. And now listen to my story. She's been a real pain in the ass. At the beginning of the year, the principal announced that our beloved Miss Beverly was in the hospital and would be replaced by this Kindle. She didn't like me right away. I don't know why, but she was trying to make friends with the elite of the class. For example, Tyler was captain of the school basketball team and he was always missing practice. but he often skipped class. Mrs. Kindle turned a blind eye. She also chatted sweetly at recess with our bitchy Cindy, who fancied herself queen of the class. Her company of self-righteous brats like herself could push you, kick your backpack, accidentally spill juice on your clothes. And more than once, our new homeroom teacher saw these incidents, but she didn't react, and it was awful.
Yes, indeed. Miss Beverly never allowed herself to ignore such behavior in class. She was always stopping Cindy.
Exactly, and now it's chaos. Kindle's friends with whoever's convenient, who have rich and powerful parents.
Are you girls talking about me, or am I just hearing things?
We turned pale and looked at Camilla. What a bad time for her to come up. From that day on, all hell broke loose for Camilla and me. Mrs. Kindle turned everyone in the class against us. I was persecuted for a used backpack from the thrift store, and Camille was brought to tears in the locker room by the girls giggling at her small breasts. Today, I froze in place when I saw my school locker. It was painted and smeared with some kind of paint. And not far away, Mrs. Kindle was standing there smirking. That was the last straw. Kami, this is unbearable. We're real outcasts. I can't take it anymore. We've got to make up with her. Otherwise, it will never end.
No way. She's just waiting for us to come crawling back on our knees to apologize. She won't.
But I was having enough trouble as it was. The other day, my parents announced to me that they were getting divorced. It was not news. Dad and Mom have long been just neighbors on the same living space. But recently, Mom accidentally saw a message on Dad's phone, clearly intimate nature, and decided to dot all the dots. So she filed for divorce. I had to get over it, and then there's the Kindle. I had to make it up to her, so I figured out a way. The school's website said Mrs. Kindle was into contemporary art, and I had an idea. After class, I knocked on the office, which had a shiny plaque with the name Kindle on it.
What do you want, Rose?
The teacher's tone was clearly not conducive to conversation. I walked over to her desk and held out a gift-wrapped book. Mrs. Kindle, I don't think our acquaintance with you is going well,
You're not just imagining it.
the teacher said, pointing at the book I was holding out to her.
And take your gift back.
It's a collection of works by contemporary artists. You're into art. Suddenly, the teacher grabbed the book and threw it into the trash can near the table.
Go away.
Already in the hallway, I exhaled. Is this really happening to me? That Kindle has lost her fear. I'm going to the principal right now. I've had enough humiliation. And within minutes, I was knocking on the principal's door. Mr. Wilson has always been very loyal to the students. That year, he let us come to school in costumes for Halloween, and it was a lot of fun. And recently, they opened up a rec room at the school for the older students. Everyone loved Mr. Wilson. But the principal didn't respond to my complaints. He rubbed his forehead lightly and said calmly,
Rosie, you're exaggerating. You better support Joanna. Mrs. Kindle. She's new to our school. It's hard for her. Be kinder to people.
I wish he'd slapped me. It would have been less painful and hurtful. Tears came to my eyes. But why is the principal defending that nasty teacher? I decided not to tell Camille about the incident, but Kindle started to get back at me really hard. She called me in every class and bombarded me with difficult questions. My grades dropped to 0. One night, my mom came into my room.
Rosie, what's going on? I got your grades from last month. It's terrible. Do you need help?
I couldn't take it anymore and told my mom everything, both about the bullying from the new teacher and my unfortunate conversation with the principal. Mom hugged me and promised to talk to Mrs. Kindle. But that darn woman knew her business. After the conversation at school, Mom came back irritated.
Rosie, you humiliated me. Why did you lie? Mrs. Kindle is a wonderful woman, and she's very worried about you. She says you've completely abandoned your studies.
That's not true.
I explained to her that our family is going through a bad time. But that doesn't give you the right to behave like that. Apologize to your teacher tomorrow.
That's it. There's nowhere to go, and I dread to think what Mrs. Kindle will do to me now. I'm afraid to go to school. For 2 days, I stayed home on my bed eating ice cream on a grand scale. But on Wednesday, my mom made me get dressed and took me to school. It was a day I will never forget. In the hallway, I ran into a crying Camille. She had a mop in her hands. Seeing the mute question in my eyes, Camille nodded towards the classroom.
Kindle came up with occupational therapy for me. She was sick of hearing all my protests. This is a nightmare!
I knew the teacher was taking it out on her best friend because of me. I'll help you.
I have 2 floors to clean. After school.
The 2 of us can do it faster. We hugged each other and hurried off to class. It was already dark outside, and we were still scrubbing the floors with Camille. My back was stiff from the experience. Let's take a break. I'm starving. There should still be a snack machine on the first floor. Let's go. So Camille and I went downstairs. It was quiet. We walked tiredly down the dark hallway. Suddenly, I heard some laughter. We froze. Maybe I imagined it. When we took a couple of steps forward, we saw a narrow strip of light. The door to the principal's office was half open, and from there came quiet voices. We slowly approached the door and opened our mouths in surprise. Mrs. Kindle sat relaxed in her chair with her head tilted playfully. We heard her whispering.
Listen, darling, I'm going to tell everyone that we're having an affair and that it was you who put me up to it. I hope you don't want any trouble. You'll lose everything you have.
With trembling hands, I turned on the camera on my phone and started filming. Thankfully, the door to the office completely concealed me.
Stop it, Joanna. No one will believe you, especially since the students are complaining about you. A couple more incidents like this and I'll have to fire you. I don't think that's what you want.
Suddenly, Mrs. Kindle jumped up and grabbed Principal Wilson by the scruff of the neck. Yeah, she was arguing with him in his office, and I was filming it on my phone.
What's the PTA going to do to you when they find out what you spent the money from the school fundraiser on? A 2-week vacation in the Bahamas and a 5-star hotel. Isn't that a little lavish, Mr. Wilson? Are you sure you want everyone to know about this? I don't think so. So you'll do whatever I say.
The scandal was escalating, and at any moment, someone could run out into the corridor and see me and Camilla. We've got to go. With quick steps, holding hands, we hurried back with my friend. An hour later, having cleaned the floors in absolute silence, we were walking home. I kept replaying in my head what I had seen in the principal's office. My phone seemed to be burning my pocket because of the video I'd caught today.
We have to publish it. That couple is screwing the whole school over.
I was silent and hesitant. In fact, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to consult. What if it turns out to be like that book again? They'll just punish me and Camille, say the video was fake, delete it from the chat room, and we'll never get cleaned up. Late at night, we sat with Camille at my house and discussed what we had seen. I asked Camille to wait to publish the video. She wouldn't listen. Eventually, we had a fight and Camille went home. Tired, I collapsed on my bed and fell asleep. In the morning, my phone woke me up. The messages were beeping one after another. Opening the chat room, I was stunned. Yesterday's video was uploaded. I dialed Camille, but there was no answer. The school was in a tizzy. Mr. Wilson and Mrs. Kindle were being interviewed behind closed doors. The police, the press, the pupils all crowded into the corridors of the school. What have you done? I grabbed the arm of a pleased Camilla.
We did it together. Serves them right.
A month passed. Both the principal and the teacher were fired. The story made so much noise that our school is being scrutinized. I've been homeschooled. I can't go to school. I can't communicate with Camille. She stole that video from me and posted it in a chat room without my knowledge. Should I have gone public with that story? I don't know. On the bright side, now Mrs. Kindle will think twice about shaming any of her students. That's if she's allowed to teach. The principal's facing jail time for overstepping her authority, but that doesn't make me feel any better. How do you feel about it? What would you do if you were me? Let's discuss it in the comments.
Mobile apps are a great way to meet someone. It's also a great way to get into adventures, but sometimes those adventures can turn out to be a problem. This happened to me. When I installed Tinder, I had no idea that this app would not only change my life, but also tickle my nerves a lot. Hi everyone, I'm Kate, and this is a story about my weirdest Tinder dating experiences. I'm 18 and I'm in high school, just a normal school like everyone else. My grades are pretty good. I have a lot of friends and acquaintances, and weekends are often spent at my aunt's house in the country. In short, everything is like everyone else. Everyone at school thought I was attractive and interesting. It's no wonder that a year ago, the captain of the soccer team, Mike Davidson, started flirting with me. Of course, it flattered me a lot, but I was in no hurry to fall in love with him. I knew that he was very windy, changing girls like gloves, so I didn't want to become another trophy. However, emotions overcame common sense, and we started dating. That turned out to be my fatal mistake. I can't say that it was the relationship I had always dreamed of. Mike turned out to be not only a narcissist, but also a pretty hot-tempered guy. He often let himself be late for dates, forgot important dates, and ignored my requests, like I was nothing to him. But he could talk for hours about his sports achievements and his desire to conquer the whole world. I confess that I found it increasingly difficult to tolerate this narcissism. We began to quarrel often, but the relationship continued. I guess I was still hoping for something. I was hoping he'd change and everything would be okay. But just before the school ball, I saw something that made me once and for all cut this selfish turkey out of my life. And not only him. You subscribe to the channel. All the stories here are funny. Don't miss it. And I'll keep telling. I hope you're interested to know what happened next. Mike and I were supposed to meet in the parking lot at the mall. However, at the last minute, he texted that he was very busy and couldn't make it. Of course, I was really pissed because I drove all the way from the other side of town to get here. I also spent half a day running around the flea market to please Mike with a collection of posters with soccer players, which he was looking for so long. What a bastard. Sighing, I headed for the bus stop. I planned to stop for dessert and my favorite milkshake to brighten my day in some way. Suddenly, I saw Mike and Nancy walking down the street holding hands. I just couldn't believe my eyes. Ah! You're a fucking traitor! I didn't realize how I got there so fast. I threw the posters in his face and walked away. I probably should have said something else to Nancy, but I just wanted to get away so I wouldn't be tempted to pull her hair. I was just furious. For weeks afterward, I licked my wounds. I cried, ate my favorite ice cream, and watched rom-coms. I didn't want to think about prom. My other friend Trina was supportive, but soon she couldn't take it anymore.
That's enough. I know who you're going to prom with.
And she handed me a phone with an app on the screen. I'm not going on Tinder, it's full of weirdos. I don't want to.
So you don't want to go to the prom and rub it in that traitor Mike and his new girlfriend's face?
I don't.
Invite your neighbor Mark. He seems nice, and you've liked him for a long time.
Get off!
So are we making an account?
Trina smiled conspiratorially. And that's how I got my Tinder profile. I'll be honest, I hesitated to log in for a few days. Trina had created an attractive page for me, but I had my doubts. What if some weirdos wrote to me? But Mike and Nancy looked so damn arrogant and pompous that I couldn't stand it and just sat down one evening to leaf through. I had a few matches, but most of the guys didn't generate much interest. Then, a few days later, a really handsome guy wrote to me. Bill. We chatted about everything: the weather, school, new TV shows. Bill asked me out on a date to a cool restaurant. Of course I said yes. It was the moment when I walked into the restaurant. I was nervous. Would he like me? But my worries were in vain. Bill looked even better in person than he did in the photo. He had a pleasant low voice and a divine perfume. We ordered exquisite dishes. My companion insisted that he would pay for everything. The time passed quickly behind the interesting conversation. Then someone called Bill, and he went away to talk. I quickly grabbed my phone and texted Trina, and she immediately demanded details. I texted back passionately, and it wasn't until about 20 minutes later that I noticed that Bill was still gone. I wondered, where was he? I approached the waiter who was serving our table, and what he said shocked me. As it turned out, Bill had slipped out the other exit while I was staring at the screen. Without paying, of course. The bill for our dinner was enormous. I had to ask Trina to dump the money on my card and forget about the new phone I was saving up for. My date turned out to be a flop. It's definitely not what I expected from this date. Oh, how frustrated I was. What's more, that fool blocked me. I'm never going on another date again. Never.
There are idiots everywhere. You don't have to judge everyone like that for one.
Trina tried to talk me into a new date.
Look, a pretty nice guy texted you. Answer him.
That one was pretty good too.
Forgot about our revenge?
I reluctantly agreed to a new experiment. Nick wasn't that handsome, but he looked quite nice. We had a nice walk and agreed on our next date. I ran to the second date, hoping it would be even better. I waited for him near the park, but he never showed up, even ignored my texts. And then he deleted his account without explaining anything. I was shocked at this turn of events. Out of anger, I agreed to meet the next suitor the same day. With Met, we agreed to go to the cinema to see a horror movie. The movie hadn't started yet, and I looked away for a second to turn off my phone. When I looked back, I was startled. A few rows away from us was Nick. He was hugging some girl and happily munching on popcorn. How could he? I felt like I had been run over by a bulldozer. But my adventures didn't end there. I don't know how to put this delicately. Anyway, Matt turned out to be a bean lover. His stomach was acting up that night, and the date was ruined. A few people moved to the back rows away from us. Some of them looked at me judgmentally. In the end, I pretended I had to go home right away and simply ran away. As you may have realized by now, this was my next horrible date. And then fortune turned its back on me. A burger lover with a double portion of onions didn't understand why I didn't want to kiss goodbye. The other one spent the whole evening talking about his relationship with his ex and how he still couldn't forget her. And in parting, he asked me to take a photo together to send her. Another one seemed to have had a few drinks before our date. After half an hour, he started hitting on all the passers-by and telling silly jokes. I'm not talking about the guy who asked to borrow money for the bus, and when I didn't agree, he threw a tantrum and called his mom to come get him. I didn't understand what was going on. I thought all the guys around me were crazy. It was just some kind of nightmare. Why didn't you stop dating? You ask. I just wanted to prove to everyone I'm doing great, so I got carried away. I couldn't find a date for the prom, so I decided to go on another date. Maybe I'd get lucky. Joe turned out to be a muscular, tall, handsome man with an incredible smile. Nice manners, interesting humor. He asked me to take a nice picture of him. I myself have often asked someone to take a picture of me, so I readily agreed. And all hell broke loose. Joe looked at the photos and suddenly got angry. He said he didn't look good and I should take new photos. But he didn't like the new ones too. And then he just opened the app in front of me and started swiping other girls. That was the last straw. I gave up on the whole thing. Screw the prom, I'll go by myself. Or not go at all. On the way home, I kept telling myself that this was the last time I'd ever do something like this.
What are you muttering to yourself?
I looked over and saw my neighbor Mark. He was watering the lawn and smiling. I'm telling myself I'm never going to use Tinder again.
Not even with me?
I was speechless with surprise. Do you have an account?
No, but I will if I have to. Better yet, just go for a coffee.
And we went on a date. And the prom. And a bunch of dates after that. Mike was pissed, and I didn't care. Just like that, no swipes, no texting. Although sometimes I do miss that double onion burger guy. I'm kidding. Have you ever gone on a date through Tinder? I look forward to your stories in the comments.